Forever. Dog.
Hello, and welcome to Outgrown, where we have guests on to discuss something from popular culture that they used to profoundly identify with and once thought would define them forever, but then eventually outgrew. My name is Julia Vickerman.
My name's Tom Scharpling. How are you doing?
Doing so good. How are you, Tom?
I'm all right. No, I'm doing really well. You know why I'm doing so well?
Why?
Because of our guest today.
I know, I'm
Julia.
excited.
You're not going to believe who we have in the studio.
Who is it?
Well, this is somebody, we might as well list what she doesn't do because it's a very long list. She's an author, she's an event producer, and she's a dominatrix. This is Sophia Domina here with us today. How are you?
Hi, my pleasure to be with you both.
Thanks for coming
Thanks
by.
so much for coming on, Sophia. What are we going to talk about today?
You know, when given the chance to talk about something meaningful from my past, it has to be 80s Madonna.
Oh, yeah.
Thus the fashion tribute.
I know. It's beautiful. Let's set the stage. We'll start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Where are you from, Sophia?
I am a good Midwestern girl, turned bad. No, I'm still good. I'm from Cincinnati.
Lovely.
And I grew up with hippie musician parents. And
What kind of musicians?
My dad was a blues guitarist.
Oh, cool.
My mom was just an earth mother. But that being said, like music was a huge part of my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Siblings?
I have a half brother who's 11 years younger.
Now, when you were, your parents, was it a community of like-minded people or were they the outliers in the neighborhood being kind of hippie-ish?
No, there was a lesbian poet living in our basement and Rastafari on the backyard.
Had she been kidnapped or was she living there on purpose?
Yeah. No, I mean, you don't think of Cincinnati as like a cool bohemian town, but it's a 2-university city.
Mm-hmm.
And I was born in 1979, so growing up in the 80s there, like I had a really, bohemian kind of hippie upbringing.
What was your very first Madonna sighting?
I mean, I think it was Borderline, the album.
Yeah.
Like I was early into Madonna. I think her first album came out in like 1983. So I was only 4. So I would say probably by the time I was 8, though, I was dancing and singing to every song.
Oh, nice. And like your parents were into it? Like, did they like Madonna as well?
Yeah, we were kind of anti-religion. There was no guilt. You know, singing about sex and materialism, even as a little kid.
Cool.
Which is nice.
That's really nice. So there was no like shame coming from your parents.
No, I guess they didn't really think about what the lyrics might mean to a little kid. So yeah, she was my idol.
Before Madonna, what would you have been listening to? Your dad is playing music in the house. So when you say blues, like what kind of artists do you remember being in the rotation in the house? Like who were his heroes?
His band opened for B.B. King.
Okay. That's huge.
I mean, he was into like roots blues.
Okay.
And then, of course, you know, psychedelic and like lesser known bands like Weather Report. Like he would nerd out.
Sure.
On guitar, Eric Clapton, just those virtuosos.
Yeah. All that 70s jazz fusion, Spyro Gyra.
Yes.
Weather Report. Return to Forever, all those guys overplaying, like,
yeah.
No, that was a very, very musician-centric scene, like about players. Like you had to be a player to be in that scene. What did you like before Madonna? Were you just like into like Wheels on the Bus?
Yeah, like the Chipmunks album, probably, you know?
Yeah.
Gem and the Holograms theme song.
Yeah,
Sure.
totally.
So it's like, it's stuff properly aged for a child.
Yeah.
And then suddenly was it MTV where you first saw Madonna?
We were so poor, we didn't always have cable,
Okay.
you know, and it was that big box.
Like when it was the cable box?
When it was the box.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. You know, the corded thing.
Yeah.
Cyndi Lauper, probably before Madonna, then,
Okay.
you know, Michael Jackson. And then as I got older, then I finally got into my parents' vinyl.
Okay.
And so I was listening to the Beatles and Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin, Bob Marley.
So when you first saw Madonna and like heard her music, like when you first saw one of her music videos, what did it make you feel? What did it bring out in you?
Well, she dressed up, you know, over the top the like a virgin look.
Yeah.
That's how a little girl dresses up.
Yeah.
With her dress-up clothes.
With every piece of jewelry on that she owns. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she was frilly and white and just kind of like over the top. And I played dress up a lot. So I think I probably related to her fashion just as much as, the pop music.
Absolutely.
Now, your friends, what type of friends did you have around that age, and what were they like, and what were they into?
Yeah, I definitely had like-minded little girlfriends. And I would do runway shows in the backyard.
Oh, cool.
My mom would get clothes from like Salvation Army and just put them in a box. And so when my little girlfriends would come over, we would all dress up and then just like strut through the backyard while everybody's just probably smoking pot.
Yeah. Now, was that stuff a mystery to you? Because, it's always this generational thing where suddenly it's like, oh, there's the parents that are doing it and they think the kids don't know what's going on, but the kids kind of know more than. Did you ever have like an inkling? It's like, something's going down.
I was like,
there's some smell.
What are these tweezers for?
Yeah.
Why do you need tweezers for cigarettes? Yeah, it was strange because even though my mom was a hippie, she was a little bit straight-laced. She didn't drink or do drugs, but everyone else did. But I would still say, it was kind of just there and I didn't really think about it. And she was extremely strict on me, so I was never touching drugs or alcohol.
And you still don't, right?
Never. Never, I swear.
Someday you'll go get a beer. you
when I'm old
it.
enough.
Yeah. So it was Lucky Star is the one that you remember, which would have been the first album, like the third single off the first album.
Great memory, Tom.
Yeah.
And was this something where you bought the record or?
Yeah, the tapes.
Okay.
It was tapes
cool.
back then. And I loved collecting tapes and then, it would become CDs.
Totally.
I was one of those people who put it on display like it was my book collection.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Was this mall shopping for
Probably.
your CD?
Or you remember those CD clubs or those
yes.
tape clubs?
It was 99 cents for 100.
And you would get
CDs.
the little stamps and just, put them on the mail-in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the problem is they said, 12 records for a penny.
Yeah.
Right.
And then all you need to do is forget to return one thing saying, I don't want this. And then an album shows up and they want $20 for it.
That's
right.
That's what it was.
It's like, I guess I got to get this REO Speedwagon album. I'm paying $20 for that. It's kind of balancing out the 1 penny thing. No, I used to love record clubs.
Did you recognize that Madonna was like a subversive figure in her own way, that she was controversial?
I don't think so. I just think I thought she was beautiful and, the songs are sticky. They're in your head all the time. And I was always mimicking her dancing and performance. We had this old beat up Buick that didn't run. And so I would just climb up on the top in the backyard. And I have vivid memories of that being my stage.
Oh, that's cool.
And I don't know if I knew much about her really, except that she was in movies, she was singing and dancing, and I just thought she was the coolest woman alive.
Yeah.
So you'd be on top of a Buick
Yeah.
doing a show. Who was it? Your friends and your family? Everybody's watching the show?
I mean, hopefully nobody, because I actually had no vocal talent whatsoever.
Okay. So this was one of those things where you imagine the crowd, but you're not actually saying, hey, come on in the backyard. I'm going to do a show now.
Yeah. I think I knew I had other talents than I was a visual artist more so than a vocal artist.
Oh, cool. Any fan art of Madonna ever?
Probably. And then I had a babysitter who looked like Madonna. She taught me to draw.
Oh, very
Wow.
cool.
Okay.
But yeah, she looked like Madonna. She had a boyfriend who looked like Sean Penn. So it was just my own little fantasy.
Yeah.
Madonna.
You're getting everything
reality playing
confused with everything else.
Yeah. Would he come over and scream at her?
They definitely had a toxic sidewalk relationship.
Okay.
where
Oh,
I'd be like,
perfect.
Yeah. So
Wait, when she's teaching you to draw, what types of stuff are you drawing?
She taught me how to draw people and do portraits and figure drawing. And,
Oh, cool. Like legit stuff, not just the
Yeah.
little S or a
Yeah.
little guy peeking over a fence. The
Yeah.
things you teach kids to draw.
or the house with the plane flying over. That's kind of where capped out at, I think I capped out at the cube where you draw the 3-dimensional cube. That's where my drawing ability stopped.
It's pretty
Yeah.
With
impressive.
a cube. Thank you. Or a hypnotic spiral.
Whoa.
I know. It's interesting because Madonna, so many of the people we talk to about with our guests on the show, they have like a relatively shorter shelf life where it'll be like New Kids on the Block. They're big for 3 years and then they fade out. Or it's just any of the people like, you know,
Gem and the Holograms.
Gem and the Holograms. Just these kind of like of the moment, and then they kind of fade as our guests would get older. But Madonna is just a constant up to today. So you've grown up with Madonna.
Mm-hmm.
And she was culturally relevant through your entire life.
Would you still consider yourself a fan of Madonna?
Yes. I had a hiatus. She and I took a break.
Well, let's go through it bit by bit. So
Yeah, because I really want to know like what periods of Madonna were you not into?
so we're starting at mid to late 80s, gets on your radar. And now you are you now catching up? Are you seeing the videos and
Desperately Seeking Susan. Was
Yeah,
that something on your radar?
Definitely. Who's That Girl?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Which I think was probably terrible.
Yeah, I have not revisited that one.
You're right.
Yeah.
No, it's-
Dick Tracy,
Mm-hmm.
which there are great songs on that soundtrack.
Yes.
So as she's going through all of her changes, what's the first change you remember happening where it's like, oh my God, Madonna changed her look? Like, and how did you process that?
Yeah, I think it started as I got into my teens and I was becoming more grunge.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the 90s was really nostalgic for the 60s and 70s. I was wearing my mom's bell bottoms and all that. I think I grew out of Madonna then because I found her a little bit schmaltzy in her pop.
Like,
Yeah,
what's a song
'cause-
that turned you off? Do you remember?
Was it the Erotica album? I don't even know really beyond like early 90s.
It's interesting that you were not into the erotica period.
I know.
She's sliding you the manual.
Yeah.
And you're saying,
Hey, I'm not
good.
saying that was a smart thing on my part. I just,
So you get there when you get there.
yeah.
Yeah, because Madonna also managed to just have so many different eras where it was like the early Madonna, Burning Up, and
Mhm.
Lucky Star. Because Burning Up's the one I remember seeing that video, and I was like, ooh, who's this? And I remember just watching MTV. It's like, when are they going to play that video again? And then you start to realize that MTV they were just playing the same thing in like a 4-hour loop. And if
Yeah.
you didn't see it in that 4 hours, it's not going to happen in the subsequent 4 hours. It's just, they're not playing it right now. Yeah. And I just remember it was just like this seismic thing when she showed up. But then it started to change where then you go into like, she's acting. And then you have like True Blue gets a little more fun, and everybody could find a thing they liked about Madonna.
Mhm.
Like maybe you didn't like all of it, but I think there was something for everybody there if they were open to it. So you're into it, and then suddenly erotica rolls around, and what part are you just like, it's not for me? And you were getting more into grunge at that point?
Yeah, I don't think it was a very meditated decision.
Sure.
Of like, she turned me off.
So it's more as
Yeah.
other things were turning you on rather than her
Yeah,
turning you off. You
maybe, just eschewing pop music
Sure.
for, what was the original grunge, like something angsty was burgeoning, and I was angsty as a teenager, so I
Yeah.
related to it.
And who were your favorites in that run? We're talking about Nirvana and Soundgarden and all the big ones.
Pearl Jam even. I mean, I remember having to go with a parent to a Pearl Jam concert. That's how young I was,
Was that your first concert?
My first concert was like a music festival that the local alternative radio put on.
What's the one you remember saying, I want to go to this, like actively saying, this is somebody I like and I want to go?
I think New Order was one of my early shows. And then I got really into local bands to the point where it was like stalker level knowledge about their lives.
Oh, cool.
And I had
What's one of those bands?
There was a band in Dallas because I had moved by then called Tripping Daisy.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Familiar.
Only you guys would be familiar. No one else knows.
So-
Tripping Daisy.
So you
Yeah.
moved to that. What led to the family move to Dallas?
It was a stepfather's work situation.
Okay. Just
Yeah.
going where the work is.
Yeah. So it was awful because, Dallas is not the same, like culturally. And We lived in the suburbs. So yeah, I needed grunge right about then.
Mm-hmm.
And you're starting over with trying to meet new friends and all that. What was it like to go? Because now you're in your late tweens or something like
Yeah.
that, and now you're like, that's the hardest time to
Yeah, that's
make
a rough time to
friends.
move.
Yeah.
What was that transition like, especially with Texas kids now?
It would have been fine, except then we joined a cult. So
Oh, that's just a footnote. The minor
Yeah.
detail.
That's I'm very,
Sure.
very curious how this
Okay.
transition happened.
Yeah.
Like, was it the move to Dallas? Like, was she introduced to someone new in Dallas who led her down this path?
no, it was a combination of family dysfunction. So the new stepfather coming in and being really abusive. And I think this cult is now this ray of hope and this guidance for us to be happy.
Okay.
So it just happened to coincide with moving to Texas, which was already, culturally kind of
Like, do she hear about it like from a flyer, or was it from people she's meeting on the street? Like,
yeah, they go door to door.
so
Jehovah's Witnesses.
it worked.
Yes.
Okay.
So she got a knock on her door, and then my stepfather had experience with Jehovah's Witnesses in the 70s.
Okay.
So it was just this like confluence of events and influences, and then she's like, "Okay, now you have to be part of this thing."
Wow. And you're like a 12-ish?
Mhm.
Or yeah, wow, that's an interesting age to enter into something like that. Like, were you game to do this? Did it seem like I'm excited about this new community?
No, not at all, because immediately you have to stop having fun
Right.
in
Yeah.
very innocuous ways, like no birthdays, no holidays, no
Okay.
sports.
It's such like you said, Julie, it's a time, 12, that's when kids start to individuate from their family and and say, I'm my own person and this is how I'm different than my parents. That's usually the time when kids are like, I hate you.
Yeah, like if I were going to start a cult, I probably wouldn't ask a 12-year-old to join. It seems like they'd be like less likely.
Yeah. So at the point when kids are usually taking that step away from the family, you're getting
Mm-hmm.
pulled in.
Mm-hmm.
What was the community-wise? Was this an outlier of a thing? Was it were there other Jehovah's Witness families around you, or were you alone with this?
We joined a congregation. The congregations are limited to about 100 people, and then you have districts, and so you have a large-ish community within, your city and your county and all that. But it's very isolating because you have to get rid of all of your other friends.
Oh, that's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's the traditional cult thing to do.
That's the hallmark of cults.
Sure.
Just to isolate you from people who might ask questions
Mhm.
and get you thinking.
Yeah.
Mhm. Now this like you're putting your tapes, displaying them proudly. This is what I'm into. This is who I am. Is all that stuff now just like, get that stuff out of here?
There were limits imposed on the kind of media that I could consume, but music was such a huge part of my life.
Mhm.
So I wasn't required to give it up entirely.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, thank God.
What things would you have been? What things did you have to give up?
So you couldn't watch anything beyond like a PG-13 movie.
Okay.
No rap, no metal, which is fine.
Mhm.
I gave up. I was playing basketball in school. And then, all my friendships had to kind of be dissolved.
Okay. So it was like basketball's off the table
Yeah,
because it involves socializing with non-believers.
exactly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so when they first started taking things away, like for those who don't know, like what is it about birthdays and holidays and celebrations that Jehovah's Witnesses don't agree with?
They claim that they're all pagan
Okay.
in their origins, and that they're really purist about doing only the things that would honor God.
So you can have celebrations related to God.
Right. You could celebrate anniversaries and baby showers,
Okay.
things like that, which are so boring.
But like a birthday is that just like celebrating an individual above God in terms of like that you're just not supposed to be anything special?
That's part of it. But they'll say, the pagan origins are the candles on the cake are there to ward off spirits.
Sure.
Or like the only 2 birthdays recorded in the Bible were wicked unbelievers. And so there's a reason for everything in their doctrine. And so even though it seems like you must have to be really stupid to believe these things, they do intellectualize it.
Right.
So even as a kid, I was like, oh yeah, well, they proved it. That makes sense.
Totally.
So you were buying into it initially?
Eventually, I intellectually grasped onto it. And I also have a Sicilian mother, so I didn't have a choice.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that also runs deep culturally. I mean, my family's primarily Italian, but it's not even a heavy duty Italian family, but it's just there. Even if my family was not overly religious by any stretch, but all of that stuff is still just woven into existence because it's some generationally established cultural thing that just like you believe.
And was there anything about Madonna's like Italian heritage that you found attractive as well?
Definitely. And because even before the cult, my mom moved away from her family, so I've always had nostalgia about the Italians. Like my grandmother was a diva. She was very stylish. There's a lot of fur and her red carpet and her white leather couches, all those very Italian things.
That's
I kind
fancy.
of had a lot of nostalgia for just being kind of absent from my life.
Plastic on the couch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How did you
Always
know?
that thing. Because I had grandparents also.
When does the plastic come off? Do they take it
Never.
off for
The
someone
plastic
special?
never comes off the couch.
How else are you going to have a white couch?
Somebody might spill something on it.
That's just so interesting.
You need to sit on uncomfortable plastic because somebody maybe one day might spill some. Or you could just say, hey, don't drink near the couch. But why would you say that when you could just wrap it in hard plastic?
Well, that was the sitting room.
Okay.
We didn't have the plastic on the actual living room.
Okay.
But the sitting room, the plastic grapes, the electric organ in the corner. It was like,
wow.
This is literally my grandparents' house.
Well, so you guys
organ
can.
in the corner.
When does the sitting room come into
Fake fruit,
play?
yeah.
It was just fake fruit, and there was an organ in the corner that kind of nobody could play.
Sure.
But there were like very rudimentary songbooks. Nobody actually played. I would go on and make sounds on it every once in a while. Yeah. Oh, I get it.
We should check our 23andMe.
Yeah, I know.
Well, so when would the sitting room get used?
Never. Also, that's the other thing.
Really?
Nobody ever sat in it.
No.
It was
Really,
'cause it's
never. Not
uncomfortable.
even if like a fancy guest. I don't even know what a
I think
fancy
we did
guest
Christmas
would be.
in there. We did
Sure.
Christmas.
So you
put the
did.
tree up
So
in
you
there.
celebrated Christmas.
But this is before.
Oh,
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
This is before.
Okay.
So I had like this beautiful, culturally rich experience up until 12.
That's so crazy.
And then this like really aesthetic denial of lots of pleasure and fun in the name of God.
What are the aesthetics of a Jehovah's Witness? Are there any clothing recommendations?
Well, you're wearing the traditional Jehovah's Witness
Well,
clothes
yes,
today.
we would
This is
go
the
churn the
uniform.
butter in the cone bra. No, it was just really sex shaming, and women were told to cover up as much as possible, like not any kind of head covering unless you were praying in front of a man. Then you had to wear a head covering. But it just wanted to strip you of your individuality, and you were told to put on what the Bible calls the new personality.
What is that?
It's just conforming to like pretending that you're never mad or upset and that you're just chaste and God-fearing all the time.
Yeah, it's like the no personality, not
The
like
no
it's like say
personality.
goodbye to any. And this is talk about a culture clash. It's like, of course, patriarchy runs wild everywhere in all cultures. But
Thanks
one
a
of the
lot, Tom.
Sorry, we did it. Look, we did it. I'm sorry, we won.
Great.
No, okay. It's like, but there is, if we're going to talk about traditions also, there are so many strong, like being a strong woman in Italian culture is a celebrated positive role model and a positive dynamic. It's not like tamped down but now you're going to a thing where it's just like women are there to basically serve the men.
To be submissive, they wouldn't say to serve the men.
Okay.
But in the hierarchy, they're below even male boys.
Really?
Above the pets, below the male boys.
Okay, so what's the intellectual, like the logic that you found that they said about covering your face to pray in front of a man?
It would be showing submission. So you wouldn't have to cover your face, but you'd have to put something on your head.
Okay.
But generally, women wouldn't even pray in front of a man. That was the man's role.
To pray?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't even respectfully do that.
You're now hitting that point where, like, when you become a teenager, everything's firing off in you, just biologically it is, and also culturally for you. How were you handling all of this stuff happening in you? Because if nothing changed, you would have been able to just have grown into all these things. Like you go from being a child to a tween to a teen, and that would have been the natural progression. But right when you're hitting that the axis of maturity, you're just getting shoved down. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I definitely had like some dark days trying to, because I started to believe that God was watching me. And so like the stakes were really high. They taught that you could be destroyed in Armageddon. And I also really wanted my family not to be so dysfunctional. And I wanted my parents to stop fighting. And so there were a lot of reasons why I conformed to it. I thought, okay, this is going to bring a better life now, and then I'll live forever in paradise in the future. And then I was a little bit rebellious within the cult in that I was still going to shows. I even got a fake ID, and I was like, you can't take everything away from me. So I had this kind of dual nature where I was like extremely high achieving in the cult, but I was like still gonna pursue music and the things that I loved.
And this was like secretly, or this was just accepted by your family?
Like were they turning a blind eye to it, knowing it's kind of going on, or
a little bit of singing in the club was secret. And then the elders would counsel me sometimes for being a little too public about it.
Okay.
Like, stop inviting our kids to so many concerts. And I'm like, do you know what your kids are really doing?
Right.
Concerts are the least of your problems, guys.
So being involved in the cult, did it help your parents to stop fighting this? Was there more peace in your family?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
It just changed the types of fights?
Yeah, now it was just, it was really highlighted how dysfunctional our family was, because now we had a blueprint and we were definitely not following it.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was terrible.
What days of the week do Jehovah's Witnesses go to church?
Sunday.
Okay, so it is Sunday. Is it like a longer?
They actually, when we started, there were 3 meetings a week and then mandatory door to door.
Okay. So you did that as well. You went door to door.
Yes, excessively.
What would that be like? You just go up to a stranger's door and try to give them a pamphlet and the whole...
Yeah. It was humiliating and hot because it was Texas.
And you're wearing, button up to your neck shirts.
Yeah.
What was one of like the meaner exchanges you had with somebody door to door?
People would yell at us, call the cops, tell us we were in a cult, slam the door, threaten us. And now I look back and I'm like, well, we kind of deserve some of that.
So people screaming at you that you're in a cult, that made you more defiant.
Yes.
And made you believe harder.
Yeah, because we had...
Because you're being persecuted.
And then we had an answer for every accusation. We had a little book to say, well, actually, it's not a cult because, and all of that was bullshit.
Right.
So, yeah, you could deflect anything and you're just following a script.
Yeah, and I would kind of, even as a kid, I was intellectual, so I was getting off on like kind of beating adults in debates. Because I was so well educated in these refuting arguments.
Yeah, totally. You're trained to debate this stuff.
Because that's also something that a lot of people, it's like a misunderstanding with cults, is that they bring in like undereducated people. It's like they like insanely smart people can take the bait on it, and then they're using their incredible intelligence just for the wrong purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're using your sharp skills of debate and confrontation, all the stuff, to defend something that deep down maybe you're really struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still a chance to be smart.
Yeah, it was a way to express myself. It became my new total identity.
Yeah.
Was being the best Christian witness I could be.
So that's what you liked the best about it.
There
You
was-
have a lot of pride in yourself.
Yeah, and they would reward you socially for it. You would be viewed a certain way. And then the flip side was true. Like if you didn't achieve all you could, like you just have this enormous guilt about it.
Okay.
And was that something you had to deal with, or were you always overachieving so that never was an option?
I had to deal with the fact that I had a Sicilian temper.
Okay.
Mhm.
You know, that never goes away. Yeah, the new personality was very difficult, but the achieving, you know, that it was still difficult. It was punishing because at one point I was doing 90 hours of door to door a month.
Wow.
That's a
Yikes.
lot.
Yeah.
When do the cracks really start to show in your faith and this situation?
It took a while. I got married at 26.
Okay. So you're now already, you got in around
12.
Mhm.
12 or thereabouts. So now you're talking 14 years deep in this.
And is your family still?
My mom,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
and my brother.
Just before we get to the marriage, high school education past, what did that mean as a member of this cult?
They almost forbid higher education, so no college for me.
Oh,
Even though
okay.
I was, you know, primed to get a scholarship. I wanted to be a visual artist. So no college, no sex. So I was a virgin.
really? When you got married?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And he was
Not even lying about being a virgin.
No, I was a good girl. So good. And he was too. He was a 40-year-old virgin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is fascinating.
Not the 40-year-old virgin.
I
Just a
looked a
40-year-old
little
virgin.
like Steve Carell.
Okay.
So is that pretty normal within that faith, is to get married a little later, or you just
No.
hadn't found the right guy?
Yeah. I didn't want to make a mistake.
Because how is divorce viewed?
As forbidden
Okay.
unless there's adultery, extreme physical violence.
Mild physical violence is okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it had to be extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything as a threat to your life. Then you can get divorced.
Okay.
Totally.
Yeah.
Did you see a version of your life where it was just like married, then we'll have kids, and then I'll just play out the string, and that's
Mhm.
my life?
Oddly, they discouraged building a family because then that would take away your time to be a slave laborer.
Huh.
Yeah.
Seems like you could create lots of great slaves by having kids.
Yeah, I think they didn't consider that because their numbers are dwindling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a miscalculation.
Yeah, one of many.
You kind of need to replenish the inventory.
Yeah.
But well, okay, so remove kids from the equation. This seemed like this was my future. This was the rest of my life.
Totally. And the way I would kind of navigate how boring it is I would be a missionary. And so we did that. But right before is when I started having doubts, right before we moved away to Guam.
Yeah. So Guam was your first mission trip?
Mm-hmm.
And how long were you there?
Almost 7 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Damn. So before you left for Guam, you started to there were some cracks showing?
Yeah, the doctrine wasn't making sense.
Okay.
And I started doing research, and that also didn't make sense.
Mm.
There were some deflections about their calculation about the end of the world being in 1975.
Mhm.
So when it wasn't, they had to say, oh, well, you know, you believers really, you kind of made that up yourselves. We hinted at it, but you really took it and ran with it. And I was like, hey, this is not correct.
Yeah.
That's not fair. People sold their homes. They were ready.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know that happened. That's crazy.
So just to inform this time in your life, what was music and culture like for you as you went through this whole chapter of your life, this long chapter of your life?
So the rebellion continued. I became a music journalist at 19.
Okay.
Just still obsessed with indie music. I started as an intern in a music department for this alternative weekly. And I was a good writer. And I gave my editor something and they published it, started paying me, and now I'm interviewing my favorite bands and I'm going to more shows. And so I did that part-time in addition to like my slave labor volunteer work.
Wait, what's some other of the volunteer work besides going door to door?
You build kingdom halls.
Okay.
So even little kids are like on construction projects.
Oh my
Like
God.
we're like laying rebar and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
How big is a kingdom hall?
It holds about 100 people,
Okay.
but then we would also build assembly halls, which hold about 1,000 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And do they just regularly collapse because an 8-year-old built it? Like, are they constantly falling apart? It's like,
No.
well,
They
who was-
needed us alive for the
Sure.
slave labor. Don't forget.
who were some of the artists you interviewed?
My favorite band at that time was Stereolab.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Stereolab. And then other bands like Super Furry Animals,
Mhm.
where I couldn't understand a word.
Oh, that thick Welsh.
Yeah, I couldn't
Yeah.
understand. And then I got to follow Tripping Daisy around.
Okay.
Mhm, perfect.
And ended up like getting really kind of like intimate and understanding like their family life and all kinds of cool
Mhm.
stuff. And then I would do a lot of just like reviews and best of lists and things like that. Yeah.
And from the other side of the coin, how did that world? Did anybody know about where your life was at, and how did they see that? Because we've talked for the most part about here's this rebellious young woman who's entering this cult, but conversely, here's this cult member who's interviewing Stereolab.
Mhm.
Right.
Like, what was that dynamic like?
So the way that they were able to criticize me on that was that in those publications, my review or my interview would be next to like some ad for some strip club or something.
Mhm.
Okay.
And so it was like now guilty by association.
Mm.
So I eventually quit because I felt like, oh, yeah, I can't be promoting anything even adjacent to that realm. So it was terrible. It wasn't
Yeah.
the music that was
Mhm.
wrong.
Did you keep your situation in Jehovah's Witnesses? Did anybody you were coming across in the music side of things know about your life, that you had this whole other life going on as a member of a cult? Or were you keeping
Yeah, I don't
them
think
separate?
I thought that was a cool thing to mention.
So, I mean, but nobody even like stumbled over that knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I would get hit on
Okay.
and I'd have to, demur and be like, no, I can't go out with you, or
Mhm.
deflect,
Sure.
which was really hard because I had crushes on all these people.
Mhm.
So
So you're living
Yeah.
2 lives, basically, at this point.
I wasn't living like a double life
Mhm.
because I was still conforming to all the rules of Jehovah's Witnesses, but it was a totally different world
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was stepping into. And then just trying to keep my own personal boundaries in it.
That's
Mhm.
something I always thought was fascinating about like friends of ours who've been part of, smaller religious sects or cult-like faiths. And like they are aware when talking to like creative people that they admire that they have to kind of keep that faith hidden because it's not cool,
Mm-hmm.
or that they know they're going to get like made fun of for it or something. So there is like a little bit of, I would think, inherent shame that comes with that. Like you're trying to hide something about yourself in order to not feel embarrassed.
Yeah,
Definitely.
to deny a part
Yeah.
of who you actually are.
Yeah. To fit in with people who you really admire.
Exactly.
It seems like that would be kind of a little mini war in your heart.
Oh, it was horrible because I never felt like there was anything wrong with my love of music. I mean, I did like have all the sexual shame, like they, indoctrinated into me.
Right.
But music, of course not.
Hmm. So you're in Guam. You're in your mid-20s now. Even you're in your
30.
early 30s.
Wait,
Yeah.
before we get to that, so
Okay.
you had sex with a 40-year-old virgin.
I did.
Like, how was that?
Not great.
Shocking.
Mhm.
Like, was it like bumbly and adolescent feeling?
I mean,
Had he ever touched a boob? Like,
neither of us had ever kissed anyone
whoa.
until we got married.
Whoa.
So we were both.
that must have been
extreme.
wild.
Mhm.
It was great. We were attracted to each other and we did love each other. But yeah, you can imagine.
And what was your knowledge of just how things worked in that regard? I mean, even not saying you did things, but you had no...
No, had no idea. I had to ask my girlfriend who got married 6 months before me, like, if it moved on its own, or... And then my husband got weird advice about how to use pillows, and it just was all... just this juvenile misunderstanding.
Yeah. It's like weirdly adorable and yet disturbing at the same time.
Exactly.
It's like,
Mostly disturbing now that I think about it.
I want to know more about these pillows.
Like someone told him that he had to put a pillow under me for the angle, and I'm like, who told you that?
But you didn't exactly know the answer either.
No, I was completely ignorant about
No.
sex. Yeah.
So now you're in, how old are you when the real break happened? Like how many years into, just more or less.
You're in Guam when
I'm
the break
in Guam,
happens?
and my faith is just like really tested for a lot of reasons. And I didn't know it was in a cult, but I just knew that I was being brainwashed. The message just became so repetitive. I started just seeing that one aspect of it, and I was like, oh, they're conditioning us.
And what was your husband feeling about all this?
He he's still deeply indoctrinated.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So this, I'm assuming you're not still married to this guy
Right.
secretly.
That is correct.
So the divorce was linked to the end of the relationship had a lot to do with that he wouldn't leave the cult with you, or?
Yeah, I had to leave him and the cult at the same time. That was the only way to get out.
Because look, I'm almost done with the book.
Oh yeah,
So
Sophia's written a book.
So everybody knows.
Yeah.
Is this the camera?
Hold
I'll
this
hold it up
thing
here.
up.
Okay,
This is the book Sophia wrote. Dom and Dahmer.
Yes.
And it's, what would you call it? A roman à clef? Where it's like you're telling your story, but through characters.
Yes, it's a fictionalized version of my life leaving a cult and becoming a professional dominatrix.
Yeah. Is the escape the same as it happened in the book, or is that
No.
No. Okay.
That is fictionalized.
Okay.
I compressed the timeline of
Sure.
events.
No, that's what you have to do with these
Yeah,
things.
because now I left in 2018.
Okay.
Gosh, that's so recent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Otherwise, you'd have a phone book of a book if you were going literally through each thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, of course, that's what you do artistically. 2018. Wow. That's...
Old Trump is president for the first time.
He's 2 years in.
Yeah.
So how did that feel to now carry this? So you're basically throwing one life out and saying, I'm going in through this door and I don't even know what's on the other side of this door.
Yeah, it was like jumping off a cliff.
What was that conversation with him, your husband?
I went on a 6-week solo trip. In the meantime, I had become a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And so I had all these like projects that I was going to shoot across the country with this particular client of mine. So I was like, I'm going on a road trip. I got in my car. I turn up in New Orleans and I start experimenting.
Oh.
So about 6 weeks later, I had done this solo sojourn. I had to come back and tell him it's over. I'm leaving.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, what went down in New Orleans?
So many things. Well, it felt like my childhood again. It reminded me of like my bohemian childhood in Cincinnati. So, music pouring out of the streets, very like sexually open.
Yeah.
So I just was kind of wandering around and met these characters.
I felt like freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it overwhelming to have that kind of freedom?
Oh yeah, I had some guilt crashing down on me afterwards. Definitely like some emergency calls with my therapist. And I only had a few friends who were not Jehovah's Witnesses.
Was your therapist a Jehovah's Witness?
No.
Oh, I can't. I'm surprised that was allowed. It just seems like a therapist would put a lot of ideas into your head.
It was not encouraged, but my husband was so like just distraught with how unhappy I was that he was like, maybe you should see a therapist.
Okay.
It is interesting because I'm not saying this was not a hard cult, but it's not the doors slammed and you are not allowed to walk out on the street away from us and all that. Like, it seems like there's a certain amount of latitude that's being granted, but it's still just like, but come back This is where you come back here and this is where you belong. But those freedoms, it is just as interesting that like a therapist would be, if you're in bad enough shape, okay, we'll allow this. If like, it's just interesting that those things were like trying, because it's like, it's not this or this. It's kind of this gray area that you were allowed to dip into if a problem was large enough.
Right. And she is the reason that I was able to get out.
Yeah.
She had just very subtle ways to get me to question things, and I finally did.
So your husband was not like entirely like domineering and like, because it's nice that he would let you speak to someone you know.
He was a sub.
Perfect.
He was submissive to me, which also made it very hard because we were supposed to be the opposite.
Right.
But part of that
He's just out buying pillows. And
he was like my housewife.
Okay.
Yeah. Couldn't earn a living. I was out earning a living. I made our missionary life possible.
Oh, okay.
It was just a weird, fucked up situation for both of us. We were trying to be things we never could be.
Did you want to have children?
No.
Yeah.
Thank God. No.
So you get out. When does Los Angeles become the destination for you, and why?
Pretty quickly. I was a travel filmmaker, so I could live anywhere. So it was a toss-up between New Orleans and LA. And I was like, I need to be a smaller fish in a bigger pond rather than the other way. And I had one friend out here in LA. And so she's like, yeah, come stay with me. So I slept on her couch until I found a place. And then I had 2 friends and 3 friends and 4 friends. But it was strange. I was, 38 years old, but I was developmentally like a teenager in a lot of ways.
And you had to like rebuild all of your social networks.
Entirely. Yeah. You lose everybody.
Are they instructed to not speak to people who've left?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. You're socially excommunicated and then sometimes judicially excommunicated. That didn't happen to me because I never went back.
Okay.
I just left and it was like a clean break.
It's like they couldn't punish you if you didn't go back.
Right.
In the book, the character Stella, who I think is you. No, it's she keeps getting pestered over waves of texts and come back and nonstop phone calls. Was a part of it? Just from everybody.
Yeah, I would get calls years later from elders who I didn't know asking me about my sex life and why my marriage broke up, because the only way that my ex-husband could be free to remarry is if I admitted that I cheated on him.
Oh.
Which I didn't think I did because I left him and then I had sex with other people.
Right.
So he was stuck.
Really?
He might still be stuck.
Oh, wow.
Because I won't fall on my sword for him.
Yeah, because it was not an adulterous decision that split the marriage up. You were just getting out of this whole thing.
You had a conversation with him that the relationship is over.
I did. Yeah. And he was totally distraught. I ended up kind of like fleeing in the night. I thought maybe we could talk it through, but I ended up just having to really escape out of there.
And what type of films were you making?
I was doing tourism commercials.
Oh,
essentially, like the client would send me with a small crew to like Ireland, and there'd be a host, and I was the DP, director, editor. It was just this fun, like run and gun thing.
Yeah,
that I was
that's
doing.
awesome.
Yeah, so that helped me.
Do you get permits for a lot of that stuff, or is it pretty like on the go? Just shoot real fast.
No, because they worked with tourism boards.
Okay,
but just the style of filmmaking, like we didn't have like hair and makeup and a whole like production trailer. It was just this little raggedy crew, I would say.
That's cool. That's really fun.
Yeah.
Whenever we do music videos in New York, the work around it, I would always say to people like, what are you shooting? It was just like, oh, we're just doing a dumb video for our friend's birthday. And then nobody, because it's usually just, there's not a huge crew where you're just like, well, why do you have 50 people? It's like, no, it's usually someone holding a camera, maybe someone holding the mic. And you just go, we're just doing a dumb video. So that's my advice to anybody. Play dumb. Say you're just making a dumb video for your friend's birthday. Nobody questions it.
So you came to LA. You're building a new friend group. Well, when did like BDSM enter the picture?
In the first year.
In New Orleans or in LA?
In LA.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got here like March, April. by December, I was on a date with a dominatrix.
Oh, nice.
Not knowing that she was. I just needed to start dating women immediately.
Yeah, had you always been attracted to women, but it wasn't something you felt you were allowed to explore, or you just never even realized it until LA?
I didn't even think about it until I got here, really. And I was like, oh, a woman kissed me in Paris, actually, of all places. And I was like, yes, let's do this.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And for your life now, we're still talking 7 years. This is only 7 years. How that catch up, how has that felt? Do you feel like you're moving 200 miles an hour while everybody else is going 50 miles an hour?
Yeah. And that's kind of my personality. Yeah, I've always been a little impetuous, adventurous, and I like to take chances. So, yeah, I wanted to catch up as quickly as possible. I felt like I'd wasted my life.
But now I'm sure you realize that, like, oh, I wouldn't be the person I am without all of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you are who you were supposed to be now.
Yes. And thankfully, I had the early childhood of being, who I actually was by nature
Yeah.
Sure.
to return to. So it wasn't like I didn't have any personality.
Like you knew what it should be like, and then hit pause for a long time, and then you hit play again.
Yeah. Now I have to become Madonna.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, so you're dating a dominatrix, and that's who kind of opens your mind to, like, this is a possible career path.
Yeah, we didn't end up becoming romantic. It was a little kinky, but she became my best friend and mentored me into something that was so aesthetically pleasing and psychologically intricate and interesting. And yeah, I kind of informally studied under her.
And in relation to now the past 7 years, what is was it just like jumping into the deep end of a pool for all the culture and everything like that?
Yeah, I'm still catching up. People are like, wait, you haven't seen that?
Like what is
seminal movie about sex or whatever.
What is something like that everybody's like, oh, blah, 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 and they're just talking and you're just like, I don't know what this is.
Well, I just got Madonna's sex book last year.
And it's like,
It's a beautiful book.
$500.
Yeah.
I found it for like $100.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. No, things like that. Or I hadn't even seen The 40-Year-Old Virgin, upon which my husband's life was based.
Yeah. No, you were. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
any
very
rated
nice.
R movies I had not seen,
Okay.
except the few times I rebelled. Yeah.
So now you're just saying to people, it's like, you guys should see Titanic. It's a good movie.
And they're like, yeah, Sophia.
Yeah.
Like everybody's
Yeah,
like,
it just came
Yeah,
out.
did anybody see it? Which, by the way, Julia.
Tom had never seen Titanic until we started dating. I showed him
No.
Titanic.
So then you sat me down and you made a cake. You made a fruit display.
It was a watermelon that I carved into looking like a sunken Titanic
It's the most elaborate thing.
with like fruit
Yeah.
falling out of
Oh
it.
my God.
into
It
the
was so
ocean.
beautiful. And then we watched Titanic, and then
That's every Netflix and chill night. There's like
yes,
there's
Yeah,
a
I
fruit
always
sculpture.
make a
You
themed
just
fruit
build-
sculpture.
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
I spent a lot of time on this.
Yeah.
Most of our wooing had to do with fruit
Yeah.
sculptures.
So to bring it back to Madonna, what role did Madonna play in this huge chapter of your life when you were in the cult and dealing with all that stuff? Were you actively aware? What were you a fan of? What were you not a fan of?
Yeah, I think I was not so much interested in her until recently again, like just contemplating like what effect did she have on me? And even today, as I was on my way here, I was listening to like Material Girl and thinking about how she's kind of like post-feminist.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of the things that she was saying. She was almost like pro-sex worker, definitely pro-dom,
Totally.
like Janet was. Yeah, maybe so that was all like kind of implanted in me all along.
Yeah,
I'd like to think.
Yeah, I mean, you were clearly attracted to this very strong, independent woman persona that she had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what was like a period that you said you were not into the erotica period, which is funny because it is so aesthetically that's like the most you.
Yeah.
Were you into when she did Evita or anything like that?
No, I think I was still too cool for school then, you
Yeah.
know, like as a teenager.
What about like Ray of Light era Madonna? bedtime story
no.
era.
So anything, post like 92 or 3. I think I had outgrown
Okay.
her.
Mhm.
Yeah. But now
Okay.
you like recognize just her cultural importance.
Yeah. And the BDSM elements.
Yeah.
And then finally getting the sex book. Like
Mhm.
it's all kink.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
queer and kinky.
And does the music now retroactively make sense or appeal to you? Like you're like, oh, I missed out on this whole
Yeah.
great era of her music because I just was somewhere else.
Totally.
What about Justify My Love video?
Oh,
Because
I'd
that's
have
a
to watch
sexy
it again.
video. That's a
Yeah,
sexy
I mean,
video.
part of having to depart from Madonna was she did become more provocative.
Right.
So there were things I wouldn't have been allowed to watch,
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah, that one wasn't so kid friendly.
Yeah.
No, that was one of the MTV, the band video.
Which was like the biggest favor they could have
I
done
know.
for
It's just
Madonna.
It's like, hey, let's make Madonna.
Yeah, you ban a video, you just gave it a whole lot more attention.
Yeah. So now when you listen to Madonna's music, what does it evoke for you? What does Madonna as a person represent to you now? And is that more than what her music meant? What does she mean?
I mean, I think she subtly introduced BDSM to the mainstream. She wasn't the only artist. And then, her message wasn't just about being sexy, which on the surface you think it is. Like she's just appealing to the male gaze. But there was like a subversion. It was like a woman who's going to take whatever she wants.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which I approve heartily, that message.
When I was a kid, she was one of the first pop artists that I recognized had really built up shoulder muscles. Like when she was doing like the Blonde Ambition tour. And I just thought that was like so hot.
Yeah, no, she was jacked.
She was
She
really
was.
muscular. And it was like, that wasn't how most female pop stars looked at that point.
Yeah, she had an androgyny about her.
She
in a
did,
way.
yeah.
And
A lot of crotch grabbing, a lot of dressing in men's clothing. Like it was exciting.
Yeah, I would say she definitely like displayed her queerness. I remember she had a girlfriend and it was becoming public.
Yeah.
It was the kiss and
Yeah, was it Sandra Bernhardt that she was like chilling
At one
with for a
point,
while?
Sandra Bernhardt, and there's been other. She just goes where she wanted to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of her shtick.
Yeah, kind of her shtick. So, writing a book. When did you decide to tell your story through a book, and what made you choose to tell it in the way you did, rather than just say like I did this and I?
yeah. Well, I wanted to protect the people involved, but also like have license to play creatively. And I always envisioned it for the screen, but I thought I want to have a book
Mhm.
that's there first. And then we'll adapt it.
Mhm.
But I'd never written a book. I was a journalist. And I was like, okay, let's go. And it took years.
Mm-hmm.
So the funny thing is that I was like really naive when I started writing it.
I feel like you gotta be.
And then like as I grew, my character could grow
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and there will be more because I'm still evolving.
Absolutely.
You clearly do know how to write. I'll just say that.
Thank you.
Reading the book, the book's really, it's super entertaining and it's funny and it's just very insightful and it's a real story. You can feel the reality running underneath it. It's not just like, oh, I made up characters and I don't know anything about this world, but no, you can feel you in this book and the pain you were dealing with and the doubt and the struggle. It's in all of it while being entertaining and
Who designed the cover?
racy.
I worked with an illustrator, kind of tag teamed.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see here's the cover. It's a really nice cover.
It is. It's very
And people can
beautiful.
get the book. They can get it on your website. Is
Yeah.
that the best way to get it, or just anywhere?
SophiaDomina.com, domeanddahmer.com. It's on Amazon.
Sure.
Wait, okay. So who was the first client you ever had as a pro dom? I mean,
had-
well, not who are they, but I guess what did they
Let
want?
me give you their name.
What's
Yeah.
their name and what's their address?
give me all
The social security
no more.
number.
Not who is it? What did they want to experience? Like, what were you surprised by things people wanted from you?
Oh, I'm still surprised. Yeah, it was actually an attractive man, which was nice. He
Is that not common for your clients?
You still, as a dominatrix, you can have fun with the client,
Yeah.
but not experience attraction.
Mm-hmm.
But he was actually cute, and he was single, and he was Jewish, which is a common theme.
Oh, interesting.
A lot of kinky Jewish boys.
Oh.
And he just wanted to experience whatever I wanted to put him through. It was like, I've never been dominated by a woman. So I just kind of like had a goodie bag that I was grabbing from and experimenting with everything. And I was extremely nervous.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
A little shy dom.
Oh, I was just like, is this too mean? Is this right?
Right. And now you don't experience that anymore. Now you're...
No, I get a little bit of pre-show jitters.
Yeah. What's the weirdest thing anyone's ever asked you to do?
People always want me to poop on them.
Really?
Yeah.
That's like a big thing, huh?
Not always, but too many times.
Yeah.
And I'm not interested.
Not something you're into.
You made a case that one time might be too many times to be asked for that.
What's something that's like maybe not someone else wouldn't even consider in a sexual thing?
I've been working with couples more lately.
Okay.
And it ends up being, it's kinky.
Yeah.
But it ends up being therapeutic.
Oh, a lot of like talk therapy involved?
Yeah. I had one session with a couple who'd been married 30 years.
Wow.
And I like to talk.
Yeah.
So I made, he's in panties making us martinis, and then he comes and sits down.
Oh.
And he reveals something from his childhood that she had never heard.
Whoa.
Really kinky too.
Oh, that's heavy.
About his mother.
Oh.
And he goes, no, I've told you that. She goes, no, you've never told me that. I don't remember. And I was like, this is so special.
As he's still wearing panties.
Oh, yeah. We had a blast.
Shaking up a drink. Wow, that is really cool.
Yeah.
You get this really unique opportunity to like awaken people to like parts of themselves that they didn't really know were there or they hadn't fully explored. Like that is therapeutic.
Mm-hmm. And my style of domination is not so much about pain. I have a lot of fun and there's a lot of play, but I love to go into the origins of the kinks and really dig deeper psychologically.
Yeah. And you host parties, you host workshops for women to feel more empowered.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to one of those and it was really a lovely time.
Thank you.
And like you also curate a really interesting group of people. Sexy, dynamic, intelligent. It's really nice.
Yeah.
It's a good environment.
The community has been everything for me. And it's taken years to build. But there are a lot of like women who are so admirable to me. Like I don't need to be on top. I feel really like grateful to be surrounded by other really powerful, beautiful, intelligent women.
Mm-hmm.
And then the lucky boys who get so much out of serving us.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's been the reaction to the book for people who know you, and are people surprised by things, or to know all this past that you've had? It's very atypical, your journey to get to where you're at.
Yeah, I think people are often surprised about how virginal I was. They're like, was that really? And I love when my friends are reading it and they're like, wait, did that happen? Was that true? Was that person made up? Yeah, it's been fun. And now working on the TV pilot, it's fun because I get to be even more creative and change things in the timeline. And yeah.
I think time-wise.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess I just really want to hear more weird shit about sex stuff. I'm just like really curious.
You can always
do that on a follow-up podcast. Do that on Julia's personal podcast.
No, this has been really fantastic and really amazing. And you're so generous with your story and your journey to get where you've gotten. And it is seriously, it's very admirable that you had the will to just get yourself to where you did, because as you get older, those things are harder to do, not easier to do, to break away, because the years start to pile up. And to say like, no, it's just monumental. And you did it 100%. So people radically changing course later in life is so fucking cool and like brave. And those are the people I admire the most, because as a society, it's like unfortunately not as encouraged. Yeah.
Your story, it has helped and is going to help so many more people. So I think it's just really amazing that you've done this.
Thank you.
And congratulations on the book. And everybody can check it out at SophiaDomina.com.
And you can order a session, maybe.
You can, if you're lucky.
Well, thank you so much, Sophia.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. And everybody, thanks for supporting the show and the Patreon. And we appreciate it. We'll be back very soon with another episode of Outgrown.
I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.